Hello, I'm Ryan and I study plants and animals here at Fort Ord. Back in 1917, Fort Ord was founded as a military base for staging and training troops like my great-grandfather and even Jimi Hendrix. Here in Fort Ord, we have a really drought-tolerant climate. All these plants are used to obtaining their water from fog drip rather than persistent rain. Most of the plants here, like the coyote brush, are also special plants that they're reliant on fire in order to sprout.
There are some really amazing native plants here in Fort Ord, like coyote brush, sagebrush, dune buckwheat, mock heather, and coffeeberry. These plants thrive in an area of disturbance from strong wind and resprouting from fires, but they're also under threat from invasive species such as ice plant and pampas grass.
This hillside is covered in Carpobrotus edulis, commonly known as ice plant. It's a native plant to South Africa and it's extremely hardy. It spreads like wildfire and its roots just dig in deep to the soil and it's incredibly hard to pull up. Let me show you. This entire hill, by the way, is probably covered in either one or two plants that just covered the entire thing. But as you can see, you can pull on it, but it's extremely hard to uproot. You can uproot small parts of it, but you would need a large group of people or maybe even a bulldozer or two if you wanted to clear this entire hill. The problem with ice plant is that it sucks up salt from the soil and it collects it into their large succulent leaves. These leaves hold on to the salt, and when the plant dies, it releases the salt back into the soil, making it extremely toxic for any plants that want to grow here. Not only that, but because it spreads so quickly, it also tends to overrun plants, and for some, it actually grows up and around a plant and can actually choke it out. Back when Fort Ord was a military base in the 1900s, ice plant was put up into the dunes. Originally, they used the dunes as firing ranges. They have tried in recent years to restore the dunes and remove a lot of the shells and bullets over the years. But the problem is, with all that work to restore it, the dunes have started to fall apart. They introduced the ice plant, and it quickly spread, creating a large kind of mat, which held the dunes together. But as ice plant dies, it starts to drag the dune with it, and starts to tear it apart. Unfortunately, it easily spread quickly far past the dunes into the valley, into the chaparral, the woodland, and even some of the grassy prairies. Another invasive plant in California is this pampas grass. It's actually a relative of grasses like wheat and rye and even barley. These long feathery stalks are actually the flowers of the plant. Over its lifetime can make over 1 million seeds from a single plant, which are all carried by the wind. They originated from South America and ended up adapting to this area because of a similar climate and have started to grow everywhere. Right now I'm surrounded by lizardtail and dune buckwheat, which are both more important plants to the climate. Here in the Mediterranean climate, there's warm, wet winters and hot, dry summers, which is perfect for plants like this lizardtail and the dune buckwheat. Dune buckwheat in particular is also really important because lots of insects pollinate it, especially the Smith's blue butterfly and El Segundo blue butterfly, which are both endangered species of butterfly. Unfortunately, they're both threatened by the ice plant. Now there's a large patch just off camera. If not kept in check, it could easily overrun these plants, putting the insects that rely on it in danger.
I was curious to learn more about the coastal scrub, ice plant, and habitat restoration from an expert, so I decided to visit Nikki Nedeff. Nikki is a native plant ecologist with over 16 years of experience working to restore and manage the native vegetation in Monterey County.
I'm with ecologist and researcher Nikki Nedeff. Thank you for meeting with us today. So, what are invasive species like Carpobrotus edulis? Why are they so successful when taking over habitats like the coastal strand and the maritime chaparral?
Well, to understand why some of the non-native invasive species are so successful, you have to kind of look at the bigger picture of how those plants were evolved and what conditions and what environmental context they were evolved. An ice plant evolved mostly, the thinking is, in South Africa, adapted to long periods of time with humans and human disturbance. And as a consequence, they have the ability to adapt to disturbed conditions, which they found here on California's Central Coast. Ice plant was in fact intentionally introduced to stabilize loose sands and soils, which they're uniquely adapted to. So it's a function of their environmental context, the conditions they were evolved in the fact they find those similar conditions in California and have a competitive advantage because they have a longer evolutionary history at dealing with disturbance. That's why they're so successful. They have the ability to grow roots from each and every node where the leaves join. As long as those nodes touch the ground, they can actually send out roots, so they anchor the loose soils where they tend to grow. They're very challenging to pull out. The best way depends on where you're trying to eradicate them from. If you're working in the dunes or you're working in maritime chaparral, the best way is to pull out the ice plant, then you bag it and you just take it somewhere where you can dispose of it properly. You can compost it, but it also exudes salt from the decaying vegetative material, so it can toxify the soil by exuding salt and actually increasing salt in the soil. Well, a lot of commercially available invasive plants like ice plant and French broom, and there are others like pampas grass, really should not be available commercially. They are species that have the potential to invade our native California environments to the detriment of the natives. They outcompete the natives. I think parts of the BLM National Monument, they've been very successful at eradicating weeds. They have a dedicated crew. They monitor, they keep track. They note on maps areas that have been treated and when, and they go back to those areas and retreat if they need to. So in some places it's been incredibly successful. Well, I think ice plant is one of those that can be effectively removed. Other things like French broom and pampas grass might be here to stay.
Well, thank you for taking some time out of your day to answer my questions.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.